Don Lemon's race hustling on corporate media has made him a useful tool for the establishment.
You are sitting here telling an African American about the way I live, the skin I live in every day.
But even he couldn't keep up the act when he met someone who actually knows what he's talking about.
Because they say, oh, there you go with it, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Not everybody can do that.
Well, everybody can.
Subscribe to Elites Exposed for more, and watch how Morgan Freeman straightened up Don Lemon by exposing his shtick in front of his own audience.
You think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't
Today?
or cannot? Yeah.
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. No. You and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Yeah. You know, I said, and it's probably get me in trouble, but I said to some of my colleagues recently, so I know that it's an issue, but it seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle, it's in the news, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it, I want to just go, this is over, can we move on?
And if you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it, but making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is the problem we have.
And that's what makes Morgan Freeman so frustrating for both the left and the right in the racism debate. It's that he's impossible for either side to claim as their political mouthpiece. Because no one really has the 8-decade-long perspective of Morgan Freeman, enough to challenge the one truth that wedges between both the race deniers on one end of the extreme to the race hustlers on the other. The truth, first of all, is that acknowledging history doesn't have to mean using it as a perpetual mental crutch. But telling people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps also doesn't have to mean you deny the weight of history and past injustices. It's this middle ground that he's able to walk and paralyze these race-baiting questions on air. But while Morgan Freeman is able to juggle these two ideas at the same time, I can't say the same for someone like Don Lemon and a corporate media that profits from a society that's dwelling on its divisions.
I don't think wealth and genetics have anything to do with each other, actually. If you're born in the U.S., it really doesn't matter the condition of your birth. Mm-hmm. What matters is what you inherit from your nurturing, from your environment, whether or not you're going, I'm just from the standpoint of having been born with little. You can always get out of that. Poverty is just...
But environment effects.
Yeah. Say you're born as one of the untouchables in India, mm-hmm. There you are. And if you're born into the super rich, there you are.
But it's hard to, when you say that to some people, because they say, oh, there you go with a pull yourself up by the bootstraps thing, and you're just being respectable. Not everybody can do that.
Well, everybody can. Everybody doesn't. Courage is the key to life itself. There are a lot of people who are born in situations where they say, I'll never get out of this, so they won't. I say to people who say, well, I would like to have done so and so and so. So, well, you could have done it. So, well, I couldn't get out of here. Well, man, the bus runs every day.
But I know the cynic would just say that Morgan Freeman is the exception. But I say, just how many exceptions does it take to disprove the rule? Because what Morgan just said there is far more intelligent than drawing a simple line from race to economic success. It's the truism that whatever you inherit from your environment grows into more of the same in your own life. The analogy I've used before is that wealth is kind of like gravity, because that's also exactly how a few lumps of rock in space can develop into giant planets over time. Once some of that matter or wealth concentrates, it develops a gravitational pull of its own that attracts more of the same. And a positive feedback loop takes over, which is exactly what we see happen in the modern economy. And honestly, that's a far smarter explanation for racial inequality or the concentration of wealth at the top, because it recognizes how you may be placed a bit behind the starting line without necessarily something actively holding you back from just sprinting regardless.
We have a much more vibrant society when we don't have such a vast chasm between the haves and the have-nots. We need that middle ground that we call the middle class, the people who buy everything, people who use the products that the rich are creating, if they're creating anything other than wealth, right? So it's what's happening with the Chinese economy right now. They're changing their whole outlook because they need consumers.
And that's where Morgan Freeman hit the nail on the head, because the kind of trickle-down economics we see championed on the right only works as long as the rich are putting their money to work in the real economy. But the truth is, in the kind of financialized capitalism of today, the rich are trying to make money from money, rather than employing people, taking risks, and actually letting their wealth spread out. That's where you see the concentration of wealth coming from, and that's why the racial divide in the economy is growing rather than shrinking. Morgan Freeman has seen that firsthand in Hollywood. Because I think he's lived long enough to notice how even in the movie business, a large part of why the racial schism started to shrink is because the industry actually started open casting after the civil rights movement and invested financially in black actors like it never did before.
You've spoken in the past about how you don't like the term African American.
No, I don't mind the term African American. I don't want to be called African American.
Why is that?
I'm not African.
What is your view of the issue of race in Hollywood?
I don't think there is an issue of race in Hollywood. Somewhere back there in the 70s, the decision was made by almost all and sundry that we have to start open casting. And of course, Hollywood is colorblind. It only sees green. If it makes money, it's a good thing. Therefore, the walls came tumbling down.
And that's hard to argue with unless you've got a perspective as broad as Morgan Freeman, because if you think about it, this is a more sophisticated view on racism than the fodder needed by the corporate media and people like Don Lemon to keep their profit machine churning. And while Don stayed in quiet agreement with Morgan Freeman in this particular interview, he actually went back to the usual race hustling on his show all the way until he was eventually fired from CNN around 3 years ago.
The part that I find insulting is when you say today black Americans don't have those rights after we have gone through civil rights revolution in this country.
You are sitting here telling an African American about the rights and what you find insulting about the way I live, the skin I live in every day.
Here's where you and I have a different point of view.
Black and white that black people don't have in this country, and that black people do have.
Well, here's where you and I have a different point of view. I think we should be able to express our views regardless of the color of our skin. We should have this debate
I'm not saying you
without me regarding you as a black man, but me regarding you as a fellow citizen.
You're
That's what I
sitting
think we should
here,
say.
whatever ethnicity you are, explaining to me
whatever ethnicity
about
I'm, I'll
what
tell
it's
you,
like to be black
whatever
in America.
ethnicity I'm, I'll tell
sorry.
you what I am. I'm an Indian American. I'm proud of it. But I think we should have this debate. Black, white doesn't matter.
I think we should have this
on
debate.
the content of the
if you're going
ideas.
to do it, you should do it in an honest way.
And while that may rile you up on television for a few minutes, this kind of race obsession is a losing battle if you want to gain any lasting trust and credibility in modern America. If you want to see how frantic that old corporate media is getting as it loses public trust, watch how Jon Stewart humiliated this host live on stage for taking a dig at independent media like Joe Rogan, and subscribe to Elites Exposed for more.